Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And you may have wondered where I went for a week. I actually went on holiday. I've been to Wales. It was very, very nice. And now I'm back. And I didn't have anything prepared for the week I was away. Unfortunately, for some reason, I decided to do two projects at once. I call them projects, but also just videos. Because I started two at once, I didn't finish either. So they're coming, but I need to finish them. So I thought, as I came back today, in fact only 3 hours ago, and I've had a 5-hour drive, I thought I'd talk about Alpine. Because what's going on there right now is beyond a joke. Now this team, or Renault, as they once were, have been around for a very, very long time. They had a go at Formula 1 in the 80s, didn't accomplish much. A few race wins here and there, kind of launched the careers of Alain Prost and René Arnoux, but not much else. And I think they left in 1985 with Derek Warwick and Eddie Cheever driving for them. That might be right, that might be wrong. I can't remember. Might have been 1986. May have been a Tom Bay in there somewhere. They returned 15 years or so later in the early 2000s and did start having a bit of success. We saw Jarno Trulli take a win in Monaco, his only Formula 1 win, and we saw the rise of a young Spaniard named Fernando Alonso, who took the team's only championship wins in 2005 and 2006. 15 years later, they've never replicated that success. In fact, I think since 2008, Alonso took 2 wins in 2008, and Kimi Raikkonen took a couple of wins when they were Lotus, and Esteban Ocon won a race last year. So really 5 or 6 wins in the last 15 years. And they've always talked about making the jump to fight with the top teams. They've never managed it. Now they have for the last couple of years at least been at the top of the midfield fighting with McLaren. And that has been an interesting battle. It's an interesting battle in 2022. Lando Norris is doing a very good job for McLaren. With Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso scoring regular points, it's keeping it kind of even, with Daniel Ricciardo struggling a bit more. Everything up to the Hungarian Grand Prix was relatively normal. And I think I even said in the video that Fernando Alonso was close to signing a new deal with Alpine. I think in the press conference after it was announced that Fernando Alonso had gone to Aston Martin, which apparently Alpine only found out about through Facebook or something, or Twitter, or it was just some obscure way to find out. They didn't know Alonso was jumping ship, basically. As far as they were concerned, there was a deal on the table. Alonso's lawyers were looking over it and they were just waiting for the okay. Next thing they know, Alonso's gone to Aston Martin to replace Sebastian Vettel. Bit of a shock for them. I guess it's a bit of a shock for the rest of us as well, because we had no idea. So that's that. Alonso's gone, and you have a young Australian ready to go. One of the superstars of the future, Oscar Piastri. Surely he'll just want to jump in a race seat and get into F1, get his teeth sunk in. So they didn't really announce it in the press conference. They said, I think someone asked and they said that if they do, I think he has already got like a pre-contract signed with them, so they have him for next year and 2024 if they want to keep him. Oscar Piastri says there's no deal and he wants to go to McLaren, and he has a pre-contract with McLaren. This is all getting very complicated now. So in the space of a week, in fact in the space of a few days really, Alpine have gone from having the most experienced driver on the grid and one of the best young talents as a reserve driver to not having a driver for next year. And the person most likely to replace both of them is Daniel Ricciardo. And I'm sorry if you're a Daniel Ricciardo fan, but he is so far past it and not going to get results that it's really not worth it. I would actually be ashamed of Alpine if they signed Daniel Ricciardo at this point. Although with the contract situation and the fact that Daniel Ricciardo wants a ridiculous amount of money to get out of his McLaren contract for next year, I actually think a driver swap would probably be the easiest solution for both teams. And very disappointing for both teams as well. Daniel Ricciardo is no good. He's not doing very well at McLaren. I know he got a race win last year. It was kind of a fluke. And he's just not on the pace this year. He hasn't been great for a long time. There was a time when I think everyone thought that Daniel Ricciardo was a future champion, and it never happened. He was just sort of lost in the shuffle, and he's bounced around teams ever since. He's already raced for Renault only a few years ago, and he did a good job for him then. He's much worse now. I'm sure he is less motivated than he used to be, and I can understand why, because he's not had a fun career really. He was at the top with Red Bull at one point, or near the top at least. I think he's the driver who has been most hurt by Mercedes' dominance over the last decade or so, because he never stood a chance against Mercedes with any other team, as many drivers didn't. But Daniel Ricciardo was the young talent and the peak of Mercedes' power, and he's just kind of disappeared from the top. Once he was gone from Red Bull, at Renault, at McLaren, he's not been a top driver. And he is a downgrade on both Fernando Alonso, I guess possibly Oscar Piastri, only because he's such a young talent as well. Really, Ricciardo's time is done. But this is a mess, and as they've said, is highly likely to go to the courts. And ask Guido van der Garde how that works out. Someone is going to be left disappointed. As I said, I think the most sensible solution for everyone is that Piastri goes to McLaren and Ricciardo goes to Alpine. In 2024, I think Ricciardo's contract would be up with McLaren, so he'd be free to either stay on at Alpine or leave. Failing that, Alpine, if they really want to hang on to Piastri and they win their court case, is he going to want to... for him, I think he has to go to Alpine and just drive and be good. And then if you want to be with McLaren in 2024, why not? They'll sign you if they still want you. And Alonso at Aston Martin, as I've said, I think that's a really sideways move for him and a sideways move for them. To have Alonso and Ricciardo still on the grid, to me that is still very disappointing, because they could make way for younger drivers. But I think for Alpine, this is a ridiculous mess, and it should never happen to a professional racing organisation, especially in Formula 1. Unless you're Haas, then it's normal. But to somehow lose two drivers in the space of a few days, or at least potentially lose, it is embarrassing for them. If it was me, and this is someone who is not a businessman in any way, shape or form, I think it would be really good to make a point. The first thing I would do is demote Fernando Alonso. Take him out of that race seat, just to prove a point. And I would offer that seat to Oscar Piastri, and then take it away. And just give it to Nico Hülkenberg for the rest of the year. I'm sure Aston Martin will be happy to lend him to you, seeing as they've screwed you over. So, see out the year with Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon. Esteban Ocon's doing a really good job, and Nico Hülkenberg is a solid point scorer, so I don't think you'd lose too much. And I would, in 2023, I would promote Jack Doohan to the race seat. And I'll just let McLaren choose whatever driver they want. Yeah, you're losing a great talent in Oscar Piastri, but he's still unproven in Formula 1. I know he's been great in Formula 3 and Formula 2. And I think with McLaren, he'd probably do a good job. But Jack Doohan's decent. I don't think he's the finished product yet, which is why he should see out the year. And I don't know if he'd have enough super license points. But he is a Formula 2 race winner. And I think he's worth a shot. I think that's a very unlikely scenario, because they're not going to sack Fernando Alonso mid-season. And they're not going to hire Nico Hülkenberg. And honestly, this is just going to drag out for months and months. But in my head, that's what I would do. Just for fun. As for everything else that happened, what I missed, there wasn't a lot. As I watched IndyCar, and Nashville once again gave us some very good racing. Very, very crash heavy race, which it was kind of very start-stop, the same as last year at this track. But it was still very entertaining. Scott Dixon won. Another good drive from McLaughlin. Honestly, the top 7 in the IndyCar Championship are in with a shout of winning it. And there's only 3 races left. So it's a very entertaining end to the year. I would go with someone like Scott Dixon or Will Power to be champion just because they have the experience. I think a lot of the other drivers are very good. But I can't see Dixon or Power losing it at this point. Out of the 2, I'd probably go Dixon just because he wins a lot. Other things that happened, World Rally Championship. Great driving from Oktanak to win that in Finland. It was a good action. I enjoyed watching it. Not too much really to shake up the championship because Caleb Rovanperä finished 2nd still, so he has a big lead. And honestly, I think he's already won it really, unless he has some very bad events coming up. But I do think Rovanperä has the advantage there. And World Touring Cars, honestly, non-event. Wouldn't bother watching it. Might be the end of the championship, might not be. But Mikael Askonen's got a big lead, and I don't know if Cyan, Lincoln Co will be back. Very, very... That series is dying. There's only 12 cars a race now without Cyan. The racing was not very good. They've said they're on a summer break, and they're going to try and get a few more tracks later in the year, which will probably happen. So Mikael Asconen is not champion yet, but he probably will be. So on to this weekend, there is definitely not a lot. I think literally NASCAR, World Rallycross, which is another series that is dying on its feet, and British Touring Cars is back at Snetterton, which I'm looking forward to that one, and the last round of Formula E from Seoul, which is going to be an absolute banger, I'm sure. Sadly, no Sam Bird, who broke his wrist in London, so that means this is the first Formula E season where Sam Bird has not won a race, and it will also, as long as he starts, and I'm sure he will, if Lucas Di Grassi starts this race, he will solely be the only Formula E driver to have raced in every single Formula E race. Norman Nato is in to replace Sam Bird, and I'm sure he'll do a decent enough job for Jaguar. Honestly, Sam Bird has not had a good season, so I can see Nato maybe putting forth a CV for a job. We'll have to see in Seoul. Definitely looking forward to that. So, stick around, make sure you subscribe. We'll be talking about all the motorsport action next week. Probably a reaction video to my Formula E predictions as well. So yeah, definitely subscribe. Loads more coming up. I am finishing stuff up. I am going to be uploading. So, thank you for watching, and have a good one.